Hi, it's Margie with the Asking Spot, and this go around we're asking, can I bring in fall? Okay, so it's wishful thinking, but it is on my mind. So I am still doing projects that are small and easy to do, so it's not too hot out. And this is an upcycle. Once again, I'm using the plastic containers and I'm using Airdry Clay, but I'm making another container out of this. I'm going to use the lid this go around, but it's going to be a much more shallow, shorter container. Now, an easy way to get a straight line is you place a few items that at the height you want that line to be, and then you turn the item that you're trying to put the line on. Once you have that, you just cut it out following your line and you're all set. Now, as for the lid, I went ahead and I'm going to cut that one out, just doing the circle that's on here, and that will make it smaller than the width of the opening for the dish, but that's okay because we're going to add some clay and that will make it wider again. It's important to make sure that you protect the surface you're working on, unless it is a work surface you really don't care about. Here's the thing though, is the table I'm working on is my usual work table, so I don't mind things happening to it, but in and of itself, it's kind of bumpy because it is my work table. So I am using the back of a peel and stick wallpaper that I had done on a closet makeover. If you missed that video, I'll do one of these and I'll have a link in the description below. You can also use any kind of flyer that you get that's kind of shiny in the mail, you know, those kind of cardstock. Say, well, it's political time, so you're probably getting some from some politician. Those will work great. It's time to roll out some clay. Grab about a handful's worth and then make sure to seal up the package the rest is in. You don't want it drying out. I'm going to roll it out with wax paper on top of it because otherwise it sticks horribly to the rolling pin. And I want just enough to cover the top and the bottom of the lid circle that I've created. Once they're together, I'm going to use some slip, which is basically watered down clay, as sort of my glue. Another great aid for smoothing this out, aside from your fingertips, is the back of a spoon. It works really well too. As far as the brand to use, I will have a link in the description below for the one I'm using for this project, but honestly I went through different box stores and different places and tried different air dry clays. I did more about that in a different video. I'll do one of these and have a link in the description below. And they're all pretty equal except for porcelain air dry clay, but that's covered in that video. Moving on, we're going with the air dry clay and we're going to roll it out to you know, 1/4 of an inch, 2 centimeters, less than that maybe. You're going to have a 2-ply on all the plastic. The plastic is actually just going to serve as an armature for this, so keep that in mind. But then again, you also don't want it so thin that you won't be able to sand out any marks or anything. And because we're going to use some leaves to press in it, we also want it a little bit thicker so it can accept the impression as well. Now, if you've seen maybe more than one of my videos, you've probably already noticed that I've got a lot of leaves to choose from. It's my husband's hobby and he's wonderful at it. However, these are nice plants. So I went around the yard and I picked out some that had just fallen off of trees and they were laying on the ground. One I think is even just a weed that I kind of helped the gardener people do, but pulling that one out. Here's the thing though, I wish I would have gotten some leaves that had a much thicker texture and corrugation on them. Well, not corrugation, you know what I mean, but a thicker texture in it, because that's going to leave a stronger imprint. I press these in by hand and you can roll them a little bit so you can get more definition in it. The more definition you have, the easier it will be to paint later. So a heads up there. You've got your piece looking pretty great. It's relatively smooth. You've got your leaves imprinted in it. It's shaped the way you want it. And now you're starting to dry it. In about 10 or 15 minutes, you want to come back and check and make sure there aren't any air bubbles. I found an air bubble at the base of mine in the back, and all you have to do to fix those air bubbles is it starts to pull away from whatever your armature is you do a little slit with an X-Acto knife or even just a pinprick so that you can get the air pressed back out there. Then you use some of your slip and you patch up the hole you've just made. Ideally, you want to do this in the most inconspicuous space, but you know, bubbles happen where they happen. As it would happen with this piece, I got lucky. Mine was at the bottom of it, so it was easy enough to patch.
3 days later!
Turning the piece occasionally, like every other day or so, or every half day, just checking on it. This piece is finally dry. Once it got to pretty dry, but I knew there was still some moisture in it, I brought it in the house to get the air conditioning to dry it up. But the actually leaving it outside to dry in the humidity, as long as it's covered, you're fine, because that slow dry process actually helps prevent cracks. Now it's time to paint. When it comes to painting the leaves, I'm of course got fall on the mind, so I'm picking out just some colors that I think make me think of fall. Now, the application of the paint, though, I'm not going to do it just all one color. You certainly could, and I might even try that on the lid, but I kind of like the idea of being a little more like the leaves are in process of changing. I don't know, making it more like it's a watercolor, sort of splotchy, different colors. I like it. To each his own, though. You know, paint it as you please. I'm using just basic acrylic paint on this piece. It's top coat time. What to use, brush on or spray on? Honestly, you could use either. I just happen to have both, so I'm sort of kind of debating back and forth, but either would work. And I'm going with a matte finish, but honestly, the finish, you can do whatever your heart's desires. If you want it shinier, by all means, go with a gloss finish. I'm sure it will look lovely. Before we look at how it ended up, let's take a look back again where it started.
Trash!
All right, so it's a container. Please, if you could, subscribe, click the subscribe button. And if you're already subscribed, thank you so much. It really helps out the channel. If you want to give a thumbs up, that also helps out the algorithm, and I really appreciate it. Oh, and I'd also like to hear in the comments, what direction would you go? I mean, I took this fall, but really we could do a lot of different things with it. So please comment below. It might inspire my next video. I think I might be doing something like these for my usual neighbor Christmas gift exchange that we do. You know, it's always just something small. Mine are usually whatever thing I'm working on. That's usually what I give out. So let's look at the end result. And I think it turned out pretty neat. I like it. It could be done with spring leaves. It's a lot of variety. And best of all, it is upcycling some plastic container. Thanks for watching The Asking Spot. Got bloopers next. Maybe I'm just doing leaves that are in transition rather than full fall leaves. Of course, I'm in Florida, so I don't get to see those very much. This is going to go in the blooper section of I Digress. Stronger definition in them, and that actually helps the clay look, you know, it helps you paint later. So you're going to roll it out on faster, and if you are using some sort of, well, no, it should all work. Never mind. And now, before we look at the finale, it's a container. I've got a dog that's ripping up some plants though, so